Good morning, folks. Let's talk about hiring, finding folks for the machine shop and bringing them on board. What prompted this was meeting a gentleman at IMTS who texted me and said, hey, just hired an intern. I'm not sure it's working out. I'm worried that I didn't do a good job with my interview process. So let's dive right in. I have generally found that interviewing is like a politician, meaning what they say when they're campaigning is different or maybe irrelevant to what they're like when they're actually here. So first bullet point that we think about or look for is how can you find a way to see what that person was like prior to them joining your organization or even interviewing. So how do we tackle that? Well, first off, how are you finding this person? We have had a lot of success at Saunders Machine Works on working with local organizations in the education realm. Those are two specific instances. We have a 2-year high school program, so folks that are in high school but want to pursue the trades are able to go from what they call their home school, they're called a normal high school, and go over to a trade school for their junior and senior year. I've got a great relationship with the gentleman that runs that program, and we try to kind of fits the vein of pay it forward. I've tried to give them supplies, raw materials, help out. I'm on the advisory panel. And I suspect if you have any sort of a program like that in your area, that organization or that school is going to welcome you wanting to get involved or help donate some material. We've donated machinery handbooks before, etc. That kind of primes the pump. Our intentions of helping are genuine, but it also has the byproduct of a relationship with them where we're able to get interns that are going to fit into this program. Similarly, we have a 2-year community college, if you will. I think that term's out of favor these days, but a 2-year associate's degree program that they actually don't have explicit machining, but they have mechanical engineering classes for folks that then transfer out for 4-year degree, industrial maintenance, similar type of stuff. So there's kids there that are taking CAD classes. They have a makerspace where they're using 3D printers, that kind of stuff. So that's a great way of being able to have a relationship with a teacher who can say, hey, we've got a great student, he's hungry, he may fit in here, etc. That has worked really well for us for interns, and we are big fans of interns. I think over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had 20 plus interns. Some of them have stayed on for like a summer or a semester, some have stayed on longer, some have converted to full-time employees, some were fired, they just didn't work out. It's a good segue to the employment philosophy around firing folks. Look, it's no fun, and I'll candidly admit that the times we've had to fire people, especially early on, I felt like it was a failure of my part to not do a better job interviewing and nurturing and coaching and guiding, because there is some of that. There is folks, there are great employees that need led. There are also employees that just don't fit or aren't going to work out, period. Some of that's been more extreme where we've had folks that have literally gone out of their way to go into corners and use their phone and stuff. It's kind of the more easier solutions. And there's been ones where just wasn't the right fit, really. So I've read some books over the years that talk about never firing somebody. You should always find a way to find a new role or a new organization or coach them or train them. And ultimately, I just don't believe in that. For sure, I want to do my best to minimize that because it's not fun. But ultimately, I've read other books and I subscribe to this belief that if you're not willing to course correct, and if that involves firing someone or changing things up like that, you're doing the employee a disservice, yourself a disservice, your coworkers a disservice, the company a disservice, etc. Just period. Don't delay the inevitable, even if that's tough. I would encourage you to also reach directly out to faculty or teachers or advisors in that program. I have very much had mixed results when we reach out to, say, like a higher level career services department, and you get kind of put in the mix with paperwork and forms. No, I'm cutting straight to the chase of the person that I want to develop that relationship with. The other resource is yourself. Consider some mix of how you present yourself publicly. That can be your website, your social media. For us, it's YouTube, although we don't really use YouTube. We certainly don't recruit via YouTube, if that makes sense. Or just host open houses, events, get involved. We've had an open Fusion 360 session here where folks can kind of come and see what the software is about. Stuff like that. It gets your name out there, it gets relationships going, and we've had a lot of folks. We have one of our freight vendors who have reached out and said, hey, my son is in high school, he wants to go in engineering. Could he come talk to you? And you meet that person, and as you meet them, you start to say, wait a minute here, what's his work ethic? What's his background? For us, we're in an agrarian community, so if folks have done things like work on a farm, I can usually tell you a lot about their work ethic. And that gives you a chance to then show them what you're about. And that's just as important from a culture and work standpoint. I won't apologize for saying, hey, if you want to come here, we do expect you to work. We like to hustle. We don't want stress. I think that's bad, but having a focus is, to me, important. It's just part of the culture and how I grew up. But a lot of times that can be better than alternatives. It can be better than what a lot of younger folks may have out there for job place opportunities, where it's busy work or they're not learning or whatnot. And to me, that's a huge litmus test. Is we want folks that are willing to work, and that means if it's kind of hey, we need to QC or we need to clean or we need to spend time getting you smarter on Fusion 360. I want folks that have that. Yep, I'm there. I'll do it. That attitude means everything, and it's just the way the world works. And not everybody's like that. When we've interviewed folks, we have some questions that we try to ask them. Tell me about yourself. What's your background? Have you worked before? What are you doing for extracurriculars? And let your conscience be your guide there. When I hear from folks that have said, for instance, we had somebody recently who said, you know what, I was helping rebuild a back deck patio. I bought a 3D printer a year ago and actually tore the head part because it wasn't working. And I'm in a class now that's actually really interesting on XYZ. So many boxes just got checked there that tells me, okay, this person's going to work out. Now, not everybody's had those opportunities or chances, so I'm careful to not limit them if not, but I want to see instances where folks have gone out of their way to pursue something, to think about something, because we're still a really small company. We've got 5 or 6 or 7 full-time employees. So we want folks that fit in here that, from a culture standpoint, are proud of what we do. We care about paying it forward. We care about using technology and tools and resources. But I also want folks where we have a team where, pick any employee, and if I say to one employee, Sam, not employee, but pick this up. If I say to Sam, hey, I want Joe to help you on that one, the immediate thought should be, okay, that's fine, that's good, I'm like that, versus oh man, I wish we'd gotten to pick somebody else. Those sort of subconscious things to me are what tell you, okay, you got a problem, you need to figure out how to fix that. Thus far in the video, what I haven't mentioned is the recruitment services. There's online versions and there's local staffing companies. We have used them before, but we didn't have great results. They are very expensive. And for us, we found that they were giving us candidates that just were not good fits for a lot of companies. They were folks that just aren't what anybody who's watching these videos is gonna wanna say, oh, hey, we're getting great candidates that are matching what we need. Now, some of that may be on us. We didn't do a good enough job of telling them specifically what we needed, but some of it's also the fact that it's been a really tight job market in the past few years. So the folks that are not able to find jobs on their own or that have been bounced around staffing companies might not be the right fit for a company that's a small company that's looking for folks that really need work. I think some of those folks out there that are doing you hear about it with the seasonal staffing of like, hey, come Christmas time, we need folks that are working assembly jobs around, there's a local gifts company here. That may be fine, but we're not that kind of company. We want folks that are kind of more engaged. That is probably the one other area that I know we need to think about going forward is we generally have hired folks that are, I call it the airport test. Folks that you'd be willing to get stuck in an airport with. We have a small team, and I love being with folks that are like-minded. That doesn't necessarily scale well when we need somebody who's just doing some light assembly or shipping or so forth. And that's not to say I don't want that person, but that may be one of those chances where I've got to learn as a leader and an entrepreneur to find somebody who's, hey, just wants to own that, do that, but isn't interested in machining or growing or the rest of our team that kind of, I think, really likes being part of the culture and story, if that all makes sense. But what that's also pushed us to do is realize those jobs that aren't necessarily long-term, growth-oriented, and more skilled, if you will, we need to adopt what I call the McDonald's mindset. So some time ago, there was a statistic that the average employment duration at McDonald's is under 40 days. So McDonald's job isn't serving hamburgers, their job is teaching people how to serve hamburgers as quickly as possible, knowing that you're only gonna have that employee for 2 months, not even. That's one reason why I'm really happy and proud that we've done the work we've done over the last few years with processes, with Lex, with organization, so that if we have a new person start, whether that's a high school intern or college intern or a full-time employee, as quickly as possible, they're able to start realizing, hey, this is how to assemble kits or fill orders or QC processes. And that really can't be overstated enough. You know, we sell a dowel pin and stud kit. We've 3D printed trays that the parts fit into. So to be a little bit cynical, if the parts are right there in bins, they're labeled with numbers, the pick ticket shows you what numbers to use, and there's a 3D printed tray that has the exact fit to drop those parts into it, if you can't figure that out, it's not going to work out. I'm being a little cynical, but that's the beauty of it, developing those processes. Because again, to circle back to a lot of folks who've started here, started as interns. And the other reason that I think we've really succeeded with the internship program is that a lot of manufacturing companies aren't always able or willing to hire interns, especially at the high school level. And so it gives us the chance to basically not compete in the job market with folks that are going to come and work after school or sometimes on the weekends. So we've got to figure out ways to safely get them up to speed and add value, but also give them the chance to learn. Like it's great, and it primes that pump for some of the folks that have turned into full-time employees here. Garrett's one, Alex is the other, who have been really strong candidates. The final topic I wanted to talk about is that mix of interview questions and what the job role is. And I have two kind of different schools of thoughts here that I just want to share. One is, if I find somebody who's hungry, smart, wants to be part of the team, seems like they're going to be a fit, hire them, get them on your team, you will figure it out. There's so many different roles in a growing manufacturing company, from JavaScript processors to Kanban organizations to learning Fusion and running machines to cleaning and so forth. So it's kind of a, hey, there are so many different roles to fill, I'm not going to worry about it. The extreme opposite view of that, which I've come to respect more and more, is when you need to hire somebody to be absolutely laser focused. This is the role we need. These are the skill sets that we need, period. Be explicit with that and be unscrupulous, uncompromising when you're hiring, to make sure that that person is able, willing, qualified to do that exact specific role. That's I think a lot harder, maybe more common in slightly larger companies. But what's interesting to me about that process is that means if you find the first candidate that you interview, if they happen to fit that, you're good to go. I've really enjoyed the opposite way, which is when we're looking to pull in interns or employees, I want to meet with a group of people and I want to see, hey, who seems like of that group, who is the best fit, who's going to have the right skill sets, the right attitude, and you kind of pick from that group. I do think that's I just really like that way of doing it. And finally, when it comes to hiring and bringing folks in and that culture, stand proud as a business leader and owner about what you represent, why you do what you do, and know that you treat people fair. To me, that's just the best way to frame this whole conversation with new recruits and the folks that have been here, is don't overthink it. There are employees and companies out there that frankly don't treat people like they should or don't care. And if you genuinely care, that will shine through. You know, I care about the folks here on all different levels. I also have expectations of them, and I would say we measure that, but we're explicit about that in terms of what we look for. But just be a good person. You know, I made the decision years ago, I don't want a stressful shop. That doesn't mean we can't have focus or hustle or senses where we got to get stuff done, but I don't want to walk into a place that's a mess or disorganized or always just, oh man, this is not working out and stressful. We could probably go into that in a whole other video, talking about, you know, what we view as acceptable things, like how we treat mistakes and goofs and minor crashes versus, anyway, probably another topic again. But it really does go a long way. I'll end with one of the questions I've asked folks lately I really like is, it's 3 questions. Number 1, tell me something that I do that you want me to do more of. Tell me something I do that you want me to do less of. And what does Saunders Machine Works need to do for you to do your job better? I found it's mostly a disarming way of getting folks to give you feedback about what's going well, what they don't like, and I hold them to that. We've had some situations where folks don't want to answer the question of what I do that they don't like, and I ain't perfect, and there's things I do that people don't like, they owe it to themselves and the company to be honest about that, because those answers help me be better or explain if I'm doing something, why I'm doing it, and just have that conversation. So much better to have that conversation on sort of neutral territory than to have that conversation when I get frustrated or they get frustrated or so forth. So let me know in the comments below, folks. How are you folks finding employees? What do you think about recruiting? What am I missing? It's one of those topics that we've had enough hiring over the years that I've developed enough opinions to, again, put a video out, but I also love listening to folks that have had interesting other ways to find out how to grow their manufacturing company. Because man, having one of our employees just post on Facebook about how much they're liking things here, and that's like absolutely awesome. That's what I think everybody wants, and it warms my heart to know that, hey, this is what we're doing. It's a good, it's great that I get to be paid to make parts and build that team and so forth. So as always, folks, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Take care. See you soon.